Welcome to Suburban Warrior, the podcast that will impact, inspire, and empower you to transform your mindset and become the badass warrior that you are. I'm your host and fellow warrior, Chrissy Pfeiffer, former clinician and corporate marketing exec turned multi-passionate entrepreneur, performance and life coach, and mom to 4 not-so-little warriors. Each week, I will bring you honest conversations with inspiring guests to share their stories of resilience, optimism, success, and simple yet effective strategies so that you transform your thoughts and change your behavior to get the results you want in your life. You will be empowered to take action, warrior up, and believe in you. Let's do this. What's up, warriors? Welcome to another episode of Suburban Warrior Podcast. I am your host, Chrissy Pfeiffer, here today to share another warrior story with you. I'm also here to remind you all that Suburban Warrior is a mindset. It is a mantra to empower you to live your life with passion, purpose, and tap into that ever-flowing personal power that resides in each and every one of us. When we tap into our power, that is when growth, change, and magic unfolds in our lives. And the magic is within us. We just need to learn how to harness it sometimes. And that's why we're all here together, learning, growing, and shifting our mindset. So today I have with me Bizette Gailewicz, and she has been warrioring through a health journey most of her adult life. She's a mindful mommy, a wellness and healthy lifestyle influencer. She teaches meditation to children and has written a book about meditation to empower children to help control big emotions so they grow into healthier, happier adults. Welcome, Bizettte.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here with you.
I'm so excited to have you here. I just love that you have taken your experiences and what you've learned throughout your journey in dealing with, some major health issues in your adult life and have shifted it into not just helping others, but specifically helping children. And I can't wait to hear your story and how you got to that place. But let's first start with getting to know you a little bit.
Okay.
And tell us about you and how this journey really started for you.
Yeah. So it started for me in my early 20s. I was 24 and I just got a pharmaceutical sales job, which at the time was a job that I really, really wanted. And all of a sudden I started having joint pain and some red blotches come up, things that were a little unusual. And I kind of put it off a little bit, but then it was a little more persistent. So I did get checked out, and after many visits to different doctors, they diagnosed me with lupus, which was very scary because the ironic part was that one of the drugs that I was selling, the side effect of our competition was drug-induced lupus. Wow. So I only knew like the really bad parts of this, and I was like, oh my gosh, and very upset for a few days, but picked myself up and decided, okay, well, how am I going to tackle this now? So I was also newly engaged, and so navigating a wedding and trying to figure this all out. I was put on medications, and a lot of them for autoimmune are pretty strong, like steroids, where you also gain a lot, you don't always look yourself.
Sure. There's tons of side effects just from the medications.
Exactly. So now I'm in my early 20s, and there were days that I couldn't even get out of bed. My joints hurt so bad. There were days I couldn't straighten my elbows. I couldn't wash my hair or dry my hair. It felt crazy that all of a sudden things changed so drastically. I felt like so much older than I was. And this is supposed to be like the prime of my life where all these amazing things are happening around me. And I kept trying to just plow through and be so happy with my job and my fiance, planning for the wedding. And so that's kind of how this all started.
And I was just curious because, I know you mentioned it took many visits
Yeah.
to the doctors in order
Yeah.
to even get that diagnosis.
Yeah.
And that can sometimes be the scariest part, right? During a health journey, or when you're experiencing symptoms that are quite serious, but yet you can't get any answers. But so that took a while for you. It took some time in order to
It
get that
did.
diagnosis.
Yeah, they were actually thinking it was Lyme disease, and they
Okay.
were going back and forth between Lyme and autoimmune disease. They weren't sure, like lupus wasn't necessarily presenting itself. There's no test specifically for lupus. They look just at different blood work, counts,
Sure.
and kind of put the puzzle together. Um, and name it, right? It doesn't really matter. Now knowing what I know now, where when you're diagnosed with the disease, it truly is a dis-ease in the body and imbalance. And it's important to then figure out, okay, why is this kind of assignment being brought to me? What do I have to heal inside, not just physically, but emotionally as well, to be able to bring more balance to my life?
Okay. And it sounds like you've gotten to a really great place in your mindset with that. And I'm sure that took some time. So tell us, okay, so then basically after the diagnosis, you were on the medication, still experiencing some side effects.
Yeah. So it's on the medication. And I also decided, with my mom's help too, we started looking at other ways to heal. So other than traditional medication, I started doing Reiki, homeopathy, meditation, bringing all of these things into my life, which I really enjoyed because it made me feel like I had some control over a situation that you have no control over, really.
Yeah.
And meeting, you meet one person kind of in this spiritual world, holistic world, and that leads you to the next person and the next person, all these people that you're supposed to meet on your journey, to help you. Again, assignments to help us grow and heal. And so I got into homeopathy. I was doing well. I was able to wean off a lot of the medication that I had been put on originally. And then my husband and I were talking about having a baby. So it actually took us a year to conceive. And I had an appointment with the infertility doctor when I found out I was pregnant. And so I got to call and say, I have to cancel my appointment.
Oh, that's so awesome.
I know. They said, these are the best phone calls we ever get. So I was so excited, and things were great. I loved being pregnant. And then it was my 7th month, going into my 7th month. And I started getting really, really bigger than I knew I should. And I kept going into the doctor and saying something is not right. And they're like, you're just pregnant in the summer. It was July, and they, you're pregnant in the summer, you're retaining water, don't eat as much. I'm like, I promise you, I'm not eating like 10 pounds a week. And I don't look like my girlfriend that's due like a week, after me.
Right.
And anyway, so it did turn out, they did I had to be monitored more closely because of the diagnosis that I had. And I went in for blood work, and they said, we need you to come in. Something doesn't look quite right. And at that point, my son was born 3 months early because I had severe pre-eclampsia.
Wow.
So that's when a whole other situation happened.
Yeah.
So between those two times, it was probably the difference of 6 years.
Okay.
But through that, I just remember doing things, it's funny, subconsciously, but now learning from Gabby Bernstein and Wayne Dyer, which is so funny. There's actually names to these things like visualization but subconsciously, I never took ownership of the diagnosis. Like, no one would ever hear me saying, I have lupus. I would say doctors have diagnosed me with lupus. I kept focusing on things that I was really happy about around me. Again, subconsciously, it wasn't like a conscious effort. I just felt like for me, in order to heal, I needed to do that. It's almost like fake it until you make it. Like I
Yeah.
felt like if I could show everyone I was happy, if I could project like this happiness and health, then my body's going to follow. But as soon as I start getting really upset, depressed, and almost acting the part of being unhealthy, then I'm going to stay there. So that was always really important to me. So when we were in the hospital and they're like, it's, pre-eclampsia, and they said, we have to see if the lupus flared. I'm like, no, it didn't, like that.
What lupus? I don't have lupus. What are you talking about?
That's exactly what I mean, even the night before when the doctor was like, oh, come on in. I'm like, no, I'm so tired at this point. And she's like, okay, come tomorrow. And I remember calling my mom and I was like, go now.
Oh my gosh. So with the pre-eclampsia though, that can be quite serious.
Yes.
So what happened? What was your situation with that? Did the birth go okay? Like, what was your experience?
Yeah. So it's really scary. I mean, if you would have told me, not in a million years would I have thought I was going to be in that situation. And I'm just so grateful that we're in a community with such great hospitals. I was at Lankenau with a great NICU. I didn't even know about the NICU. It's like things that you don't learn about until you have to.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, it happened so fast. I literally was the first patient in that morning to see the doctor. I had to give a urine, and the way the nurse looked at me, I knew something was horribly wrong. And then she said, all right, well, let me take your blood pressure. And that was another look that, I mean, you don't want to see. And she's like, we're sending you upstairs. And I was given steroid shots for his lungs. I was on the phone with all of our holistic helpers also trying to help in other ways at that point. And then he was born the next day at 12:14, weighing 2 pounds, 12.6 ounces.
And how were you?
So anyone that's gone through that knows you're put on magnesium, which is horrible. Like you can hardly speak, you can hardly move.
Yeah.
And it's very scary. They're telling you 1,000,001 things that can go wrong with your baby, not just during delivery, but also during the NICU stay and years after. So they're telling us all of these things, that they were saying you probably won't hear him cry. He's going to be put in this plastic bag to keep him warm, but he came to life crying, screaming. For the little guy he was, and he's still that little feisty guy with, lots of willpower and strength and passion.
That is amazing.
I remember the doctor, I was like laying on the table and he goes, okay, you're cured. Like you're fine now, because the cure for preeclampsia is delivery.
Sure.
And I just kept feeling like he was going to be okay. Like Jake, my son's name is Jake, that Jake was going to be okay. And the hard part is, as you're pregnant and you still think you have months ahead of you.
Yeah.
We didn't even have a middle name picked out. And then all of a sudden he's out and you can't hold him. You can't even see him. He's rushed away really quickly to another floor. And that is a really tough moment for bonding and to, understand what's really happening.
Yeah. And it's not what the plan was, right?
No,
all of a sudden, the plans that you have for childbirth and when it's supposed to happen and how it's supposed to happen,
oh my God.
It literally gets completely flipped on its head. I want to go back to something that you said earlier that I really think is important, because you said, things you don't learn about until you have to.
Yeah.
And I think that, that it hit me, because I feel like, so much of what you've even talked about your learning process and the homeopathy and, the spirituality part and Reiki. And I think I mentioned this when we talked before, I do Reiki. I'm attuned in level 1 of Reiki. I'm a firm believer in healing energies. And, I think that, and that's why I love doing this podcast and speaking to my clients and speaking to other women, because I think that, you don't have to go through a trauma, or you don't have to go through an illness, a chronic illness, or even an acute illness to get there, to really shift your mindset into a place where you can, dive into who you really are as a human
Yeah.
being, to get a little bit deeper into your spirit and your soul and your energy. And that's really what we're doing, right? It's just learning about a deeper level of connection, not just with ourselves, which of course it's part of, but a deeper level of connection with those around us. And that's what you even mentioned when you're talking about, in the in the world of like spirituality, and
Yeah.
like you just kept connecting to one person, to the next, to the next. And it was all happening as it was meant to, right?
Right.
As you call them, the assignments, which I love that, were happening as they were meant to. But I love that you're sharing your story and how it worked out for you. But I also want to reiterate just to listeners that you don't have to wait until something goes wrong in your
No.
life, and it's just, and
No,
that's
please
to
don't.
shift your
Yeah.
mindset, right?
Yeah.
To really get into that warrior mindset that I preach about all the time. Okay. So that's amazing. And I'm so happy to hear that, your son was born and that he's healthy now and you're
Yeah.
healthy. Tell me a little bit about, so through that journey for you, what do you think were the couple things that really helped you get through it? Obviously, I know you said you were able to wean off a lot of your medication. So,
Yeah.
of course, traditional medicine is a part of it. We're, not discounting that. But from the holistic standpoint, what are some of the things that you felt really impacted your healing process?
Yeah. Oh, I think mindset, as you just kind of
Yeah.
talked about. And the thing is I knew, probably 6 years ago, I think we all know there was like an intuitive voice inside of me saying that I really wanted to write. There were other things I wanted to do, but I also followed the pharmaceutical sales route. Um, Should I have listened to myself more? There's a million things that you could say. This is clearly the path that I had to take.
Yeah. I mean,
For
there
me.
was a
Yeah,
learning process in that path, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. But I think a big one is mindset. And the story, sadly, didn't stop at the birth of Jake, because a month after he was born, I ended up in the intensive care unit because I went into heart and kidney failure.
Oh my
And
goodness.
he was in the NICU. So I was on one floor and he was on another. And my husband and my mom slept in chairs next to me in my little cube and would run up and down between the two of us. I was intubated, and I know there was talk of a heart transplant. And the day that a procedure was supposed to be done to keep my heart pumping, my heart came back. I don't remember a lot of those couple first days, but the hardest part, looking back, which I still carry with me to this day, every day, is that Jake and I weren't together
Yeah.
like a mommy and baby are. And so there's a loss there of what you again, you talked about like what the plan is. And the
Yeah.
plan is always you're supposed to bring home your baby when you go home. And for all the NICU parents out there, the hardest day before I went to the ICU was when I was discharged and he had to stay in the NICU. I just remember that being so hard, leaving the hospital without him, going home to an empty home, not bringing him with us, when we were supposed to bring him to his room. And then we couldn't be together. And the doctors did a great job. They let us be together a couple times during that month that I was there and he was there. I was in the ICU, but I had to be like in full gown, a mask, gloves. Like I couldn't touch him.
Yeah.
And I remember when they wheeled me to him the first time after I was not intubated anymore. And I looked at him and he looked so different to me. Like when he was born, he was 2 pounds and now he was almost 5 pounds. I mean, that's a huge change. He looked like a regular full-term baby. And just remembering just how sad and a lot of guilt that I had that I wasn't there for him during his fight and when he needed mommy the most. So that was really difficult. And then coming home when we were both discharged, I couldn't walk up a step. I couldn't carry him. I was on stronger medicines than I was on before. And through that though, I also just remember, and again, it was subconscious because I wasn't reading all these books yet or with these mentors yet, but just focusing, I was just so grateful to be alive and to be his mom. I remember when I finally could hold him and I would be the one doing like the feedings at 3 a.m, like jumping out of bed, so excited that I was healthy enough that I could wake up with him. Yeah. I remember that happiness that I felt, and I looked so different. I mean, I was at this point 80 pounds heavier, if not more, because of the medications I was on. And it didn't matter. I was on chemo, so I had no hair on my head. It didn't matter. Like I was just so happy. You know, I would be stopped on the streets and people would say, "Oh, when are you due?" Which now I don't, I mean, I would never say that to anyone.
Okay. That is the one question you never
you don't ask. And I had
ask.
this new baby.
Yeah.
I know.
Oh
and I'm like,
God,
I'm holding a new baby, but they're asking me when I'm due. You know, I've never been at that end of a judgment before, like, you know, because I was always like the same kind of weight my whole life.
Yeah.
So now this is like something new also, you know, where I'm being judged on how I look. And it was really hard, but I just remember going to all my doctor's visits, and I would be in and out of the hospital for the next few years, unfortunately, trying to heal. But my doctors would say, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe you were just in the hospital. Like you're so positive. You're so happy." And again, it was fake it until you make it. Like if I'm happy and healthy, my body will follow. So it's positivity for sure.
Well, I just love that because listening to you talk about it and saying how it's not like you were really studying this at the time or, you know, reading books and doing daily habits and consciously doing it. I mean, you might have had a knowledge base about it, but it was something that is kind of like your mindset and what your perspective was at the time. And while, you know, you were going through something very serious and still able to tap into that, what you're explaining is exactly what I'm, you know, talking about just in everyday life about how, you know, things are going to go wrong. Someone's going to cut you off in traffic. You're going to be late for an appointment. Your kids are going to come home an emotional wreck. People are going to get sick. I mean, you know, you name it. There's a million things that happen in our lives every single day. And when you don't look at it from a perspective of, what is the lesson in this? Where is the growth? This is happening for a reason, but what is it? Or being happy that it's this and not that. You know, like you said, you were happy just to be able to get out of bed and feed him. Whereas, you know, a lot of new mothers are very miserable about that, which understandably so. But again, it really is just about how you are. It's perspective. It's just how you're looking at that situation. And while you were going through something really intense and truly, you know, traumatizing, but we can really take that lesson into our every single day. And the more that we're able to do that about every situation, we are able to just sort of elevate our entire being and our entire energy level and get better at doing it next time. And that way, when we do have the really hard and tough parts of life that we have to address, we're a little bit more equipped for it. You know, so I love that you said that. Okay, so then tell us now how all of this trauma and all of these health issues and everything that you had to endure with having your son, how did it translate into what you're doing now, which is so exciting about the meditation and teaching children meditation and mindfulness and writing a book? Tell us about
it. So it started. So I stopped working after he was born, and I just wanted to stay home with him. I also had to heal. I had a lot of healing.
Of course.
And then it was 15. He was 15 months, and the disability was up, and we had to make a decision at that point what to do. So I did very well at my job. So it's very hard to give it up. So I'm like, all right, I'll go back reluctantly. I knew I shouldn't have. So I went back a year later, and I didn't do it well because I only worked part-time because my heart was drawn to be home and do other things. Intuitively, I knew that's where I should be. A year later, I ended up back in the hospital. And a good friend who has psychic abilities, she said, Bizette, how many times are you going to get hit by a bus before you finally listen? And it's at that point, I'm like, I know this is over. And so I told my husband, I'm like, I'm not going back to work. I'm like, this is over. We have to figure this out. Everything will work out. Like I truly believe if you follow that intuitive voice inside of you, the universe is there supporting you.
Yep.
That's the universe helping you, and you will get this support, and everything has worked out from then. But from that point on, I started to heal. And so I want to help children from a young age, and I do this with my son, handle really big emotions, because stress is a huge trigger. Fear. I mean, right now there's fear all around us, fear, chaos.
Oh my God.
Circling us. But if we can concentrate on still the gratitude and the love around us, and just holding boundaries, I think that's so important of what you're going to let into your life. Like when I was sick, the doctor spoke to my mom or my husband. They didn't speak to me. I didn't want to hear about numbers going up and down because they will, right? So I didn't want to hear when they went down, because then I'll spiral into that fear. So it's, again, fear. So I did that for a reason. So I could only concentrate on healing, and I could focus on what I knew to be my truth, is that I was going to get better no matter what they said. And trust me, I heard I will never heal, and that I'll be on strong medications my whole life. And I am now completely healed, and they can't understand it. They said no one heals from an autoimmune, diagnosis. And I was able to.
That's amazing. That's so wonderful.
It's a lot of that is because I focused on what was going to help me. And I wanted to hear stories like mine, like I'm sharing right now, about people that were able to heal. So instead of going to like lupus support groups, to hear about everyone's, aches and pains, I chose to then start getting into books with Wayne Dyer, Gabby Bernstein, and so many others, Abraham Hicks, just to read about success stories of how people have been able to heal and transform their lives. And so that made me and my mom really want to help children. So if they can grow up knowing these techniques on how to help themselves and support themselves, then they will grow into happier and healthier adults.
That is awesome. I just love that so much, because, really everything that you're saying is, there's just so much goodness there, right? There's so much, like you said, you were focused on the healing process, not the numbers. And to some people that might sound silly, but it really is about tuning out what is not important and all of the noise around you, and really tapping into what you have within you, and using that to the best of your ability. And that you can literally take that statement and apply it to pretty much everything in life, right?
Yeah.
Not listening to other people, not letting the fear creep in about what other people think of you, or what's going to happen if I do this, or, anything. Right. And you did a really amazing thing. It's a miracle. You use the miracle of yourself and your energy to create a miracle, and really wanted to focus on that. And that's really something very special.
Yeah, well, you said it. We all have the magic inside.
Yes,
and
we do.
It's funny you said magic. We actually go to Disney every year to celebrate. And
Oh,
it's because of that magic. I mean, it's exactly when you
yes.
said that in your opening, I got the chills because we believe that. We believe magic can happen every day.
Yeah.
But it's
So do
also,
I, girl. So do
yeah, and you
I.
do, and you talk about that on, your platforms about perspective. And it's so important to, a lot of people will say, oh, I'll believe it when I see it. But it's really,
Yes.
I'll
Flip that,
see it.
baby.
Yeah, I'll see it when I believe it.
Yeah.
And you do have the power, again, I've heard this so much from teachers that say, a thought will become a belief, and that belief, then turns into like our reality, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
Every
yeah,
day,
right.
every single day, that every thought triggers our beliefs, which triggers our emotions and our actions, and then our results. So many
Yeah.
times when people ask, like, oh my gosh, how did I end up here? Well, if you kind of just track it back to what your mindset is,
Yes.
that thought, that one thought that created that reality for you. And that's why things like, I love that you're teaching meditation to children, because I think just the simple act of stillness, and or even if it's a mindful meditation of walking or doing something, being able to quietly tune in to your emotions and tune in to what is inside of you is something that I know, like, they're just tapping into it and sort of doing it in some schools, but it is so powerful. And of course, we need to teach our kids math and reading and all of these things,
Yeah.
but in today's ever isolating and stressful world, and what they're growing up in, which is different than what you and
Yeah.
I grew up in without social media and
Yeah.
stuff. They need the ability to quiet their minds. They need the ability to tap in and listen to that inner voice, and then be guided by that. And science shows that when we do that, when we do it, when kids do it, when anyone does it, the executive center of our brain is firing at a better, it's just firing better. It's working better. I'm forgetting the word that I want to use right now, but
Yeah. No. Yeah.
it is scientifically proven that meditation works, that being able to quiet down your brain and not only helps you in that moment, but for the rest of your day,
Of
and I think
course. And
something
it's a
like
cumulative effect.
it is a cumulative effect over
Yeah.
time. Absolutely. It's
Yeah.
awesome. So you are doing some amazing work by, teaching children in how to do that at a young age, and why it's important to do it. I think that's, for them to understand that at a young age is really awesome, to help them understand that they have the tools within themselves to really, change their thoughts and look at things from a different perspective, quiet their minds. It's awesome. It's great. I
Yeah.
love it.
And it helps you perform better. My son's he's a great little basketball player, and he can get really competitive on the court. And so now he has tools where I'll actually see him taking that deep breath to
Yeah.
calm his body, because he's learned the correlation that when he is in that spiral, he doesn't play as well because his focus isn't there.
Oh my gosh, totally.
But it's like adults too. Like, I don't think people realize you have over 80,000 thoughts a day. 80,000. Most of them are the same thought. But
Yeah.
if you're really mindful about that thought, like if you think back to your last thought and say, was that positive or was that negative?
Yeah.
I try to be really mindful about that, or how I'm feeling in the car. Like, are my shoulders bunched up? And then, take that mindful moment to just relax your shoulders and then focus on, what was that last thought? Like, why was I so tense? And it's
Yeah.
crazy to think what goes through our minds, and to change that story is so important.
Yeah, and because what goes through our minds is, in our subconscious, sometimes we don't even fully recognize. But
No.
when you are able, and you teach yourself the strategies to recognize it, or you learn the strategies to recognize your thoughts, and sometimes when you hear them, you're like, oh my God, I wouldn't say that to my worst enemy. Why am I saying that to myself?
Yes.
So the more that you're able to do that and hear that negative self-talk, and hear that the fear and the ego coming in and telling you all of these horrible things, then the more you tap into that, you're able to turn it off, and turn it off quicker the more you practice it, right? And that's how you get
Yeah.
into this better space of feeling positive and switching your mindset, and knowing, the phrases and words that you want to use to get rid of the old story and create a new one.
Yeah. And then it's amazing though, how then synchronicity happens and the flow and the energy flows better and the things that you want and will come to you. I mean, that's the amazing part when you see it. I mean, I've seen it a million times happen. And each time I'm like, oh my God, it's so exciting. Like I was doing, when I was sick, visualization meditations, which is still my favorite meditation and the one I connect to the most.
Yeah.
I didn't even know it was called that, but I would be in my car and not just think about what I wanted to happen. So not just think, okay, I want to be healed and I want to hear the phone call, okay, you're healed.
Yeah.
But I felt that excitement inside. And that's almost just as important you have to feel that it happened, you know?
Absolutely.
And I remember being so happy, like I just got that phone call, but I didn't, but I felt like I did. And then when that happened, it was just such an amazing feeling, like, oh my gosh, this is what I was meditating for. And now my visualization meditations changed because so many things have manifested into my life that I was visualizing. You know, my son and I will do visualization boards and, you know, those changed because now the things on the boards have come true.
Yeah.
And it's so great for children to see that they have the power and, in your words, the magic inside themselves to make these things happen. But it all starts with that mindset also in the beginning.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, Bizette, it has been so awesome having you here with me today. I feel like I could talk to you on and on about all of this stuff, but I am so happy for you. And I'm so happy that you have a new story to share and that I can't wait until I know your book isn't out yet, but it's coming out. So I know you're going to keep us all posted about that. It's very exciting. So congratulations on that. So tell the listeners, I think they can find you on Instagram at Bizette and Maria on Instagram and Facebook, right? Because you and your mom are writing,
we're writing
the children's book. So that, which is so special and wonderful. I'm so happy for you for that. Well, thank you for being here today, Bizette.
Thank you so much. This was so fun.
So fun. And thank you all again for listening to Suburban Warrior. We are very grateful that you were here today. We hope you got something fun and interesting out of this episode. Please leave us a review or rating and subscribe to Suburban Warrior. See you next time.